Hey there, I'd like to show you how to make an easy peasy lemon squeezy makeup removal pad or pads. Okay, there's a few different ways of doing it, but today I'm just going to show you a few that I've come across and the one that I like to use myself. Now the materials I use is like a brushed cotton. It's actually quite thin. When you buy it off the roll, it's quite thin and it's not too expensive. It's actually cheap as chips. I like to use hand towels. If I come across hand towels in sales or just cheap somewhere or whatever, the hand towels, really good. You get quite a few makeup removal pads out of those. Now, there's a few different techniques that you can use, and one of them is you can put your brushed cotton next to your toweling, so you've got a square of each like so, and you can either hand stitch all the way around it with a blanket stitch if that's what you like to do. I personally would prefer not to, because it takes a lot of time. There's a lot of makeup removal pads and I don't think I'd have the patience. Another way of doing it is you can place the brushed cotton with the toweling and then go all the way around using your sewing machine and using a zigzag stitch. You see that? There's the zigzag stitch. So going all the way around. I've only gone around once on that, but you could go around twice, 3 times and actually put a deeper zigzag if you wanted, and that will make it sort of a little bit neater. Mine isn't so neat, it's just one, but it's still serviceable. It will still do the job. It depends really what sort of finish you want. So that's the one using the zigzag stitch on your machine. The other way is if you've got an overlocker, you could overlock all the way around it. So this one, I've used my overlocker. Okay, so that is neater, no question about it, but you don't have to have an overlocker. Now if you haven't got an overlocker, I don't know how many of you realise that actually you've got an overlock stitch on your basic sewing machines, and they're your stitches on your sewing machine that you can use. These are the symbols for them that you can use, and if you're unsure about the symbols on your sewing machine and their uses, if you Google the symbols on your sewing machine, it'll actually come up with what you can do with each of the stitches on your sewing machine with a picture, which is really handy because I like to refer to them sometimes, you know, because you could forget or you just don't know. So there are your overlocking stitch, and have a little practice first before you go in, because it's the way you put the fabric on the machine as to which way the stitch goes over. So have a little practice first on a bit of scrap material. So there you go. You can actually use, if you don't want to use the zigzag stitch, you can use the overlocker stitch on your sewing machine. Now the way I like to do it myself is I like to place right sides to right sides. I place them together like so and pin them, and then I stitch all the way around them. I've got a dark brushed cotton here, one that you probably can see a little bit better. Okay, so I start on one side, stitch along, go up all the way around, stop there, and I leave a little gap there, and that's for turning. So when I've stitched it and I cut those corners off for the excess fabric, making sure I don't cut the stitches, I turn it the right way out, pushing the corners out so they're sort of quite nice and crisp. And I've got this little tool here, don't know what they call it, but it's for pushing out your fabric, or a chopstick or whatever works well for you. Now when I've done that, no ironing involved in this at all, great. When I've done that, before I top stitch all around the edge, all I do is turn where that gap is. I just turn it inside like so, and then when I'm top stitching all the way round the outside, I catch that little opening that I had, I catch that in. So bish bosh, there you go, done, job done. Okay, and that way you can actually make quite a few. I've got sort of quite an assortment here because it's quite a boring job, that's the only thing. So I've got, that's about half of what I've got. So there you go. Okay, so that's how to some of the different ways to make them. Personally, I do prefer the one where you stitch all the way around and turn it the right way out. I like that. I like the feel of it as well. It's sort of a bit more sort of neater in the hands. I don't know how to describe it really, but I actually prefer that to that. But everybody to their own. You do it the way you want to do it. Now, I've cut these squares out. I've got my measurements here. I've cut these squares out 4-inch square, and that's obviously before I stitch them together. Don't get hung up over the depth of your seams. Don't worry about it, because at the end of the day they're handmade and they're makeup removal pads. If they're not all exactly the same size when you finished them, don't worry about it. They'll still do the job, they'll still look cool, and they're still eco-friendly. So don't worry if your sizes of your seams or your cutting out isn't brilliant. It will not make any difference to this at all. Okay, so that is the materials you use and the different ways you can make them. Now, when I make makeup removal pads, I like to make them as gifts or raffle prizes or whatever. And I've sort of come up with this little bag, this little textile box bag that you can actually put these in. So these were cut out 4-inch square, and they come out around about 3.5 inches. Okay, you might make yours smaller, you might like to make them bigger. And they actually fit in this little bag perfectly. Now, I would make something like this as a gift for someone, because I would imagine that that's sitting on somebody's bathroom windowsill or shelf or a dressing table. And I just think it looks really nice for the makeup removal pads to have their own little container, and you can just take them out as you want. And I made another one because I thought, when you've got a makeup removal pad that you've just used, what are you going to want to do? You're going to want to put it somewhere ready for washing. So I've got the other one. So I've got one for the clean ones and one for the soiled ones. Okay, now these little bags are made exactly the same way as the bag that you'll see on my textile box demonstration video. If you'd like to have a look at that, really easy to make. There's just 2 differences between this one and the one in my easy peasy lemon squeezy bag making demonstration, and that is, on these ones I've used shower curtain material, because you're going to be using something that's going to have liquid on it or going to be wet when they're put in here. I've used shower curtain material to make them so that any soiling doesn't come through onto the lovely fabric here. Okay, so shower curtain material is really good to use on things like this, or beach bags, wash bags. You know, I never buy specialty material, and I usually get my shower curtains from either a charity shop if they're not soiled, and you get a really large shower curtain, all different colours, patterns, whatever, and 50p. If I can't get a particular colour, or if I see one in a shop, a new one in a shop that I like, I'll get that. Now, I don't buy the cheapest shower curtain, mainly because you can't put an iron on them. Put an iron near it and it goes, as you know. So I usually pay a little bit more for a shower curtain that you can use a very just warm iron on, and that will probably cost you £5. Okay, but you get a lot of material in a shower curtain for £5. So these are my 2 little containers for putting my makeup removal pads in, okay, and for putting the dirty in. Okay, now the actual bags of these, they're a quilt cover that I bought from a charity shop. This was the one side and that was the other side, so it's even cheaper. If you put a little gift tag on these, a little bit of tissue paper over the top of your makeup removal pads, you don't even have to buy wrapping paper. There's no wastage here, so you know, it's really eco-friendly, I think. And I think anybody that uses makeup removal pads of any sort, I think they'd be really happy with that gift. Anyway, that's that one. Now, I've also come across a recipe on the internet for making your own makeup removal liquids, or whatever you call it, And I know one of the ingredients off the top of my head is virgin olive oil, and then you put tea tree oil, and I think that's it really. And I thought, well, if I did that, what else, what could I actually put it in? And you can get these little Kilner jars. See these little Kilner jars? I think this cost me £1. So if I was going to actually make some makeup removal liquid to go with the makeup remover pads, I'd put it in a little Kilner jar, and then I'd put that all as a gift, you know, in one. I've also made these little boxes which just so happen fit these makeup removal pads perfectly. You see that? Okay, but making these boxes, that's a different demonstration to come later on. So just thought I'd show you the different ways that you can present them. So you've got your makeup removal pads, you've got your containers, which, as I said, you'll find this on my textile box making video, made exactly the same way. Nearly forgot to tell you. Now on these, to make them stay like a little box, can you see? What I've done is when I've finished it, I've pushed the corners out like that, put a pin here, held it, and I've stitched along. Can you see that? I've stitched along each of the 4 corners. I sometimes do that on my bags as well. It just makes it that perfect shape. See that? Okay. I nearly forgot to tell you that. Okay then. So just finishing off, recap. You've got zigzag machine stitch that you can use, or you can use the overlocking stitches on your sewing machine if you don't have an overlocker. You can do it by just stitching right side to right side, sew all the way around, leave a gap, turn it inside out, push your corners out, top stitch it all the way around. Yep, like so. And here are the measurements. So if I put that there, these are the measurements for what I've done today, okay? But obviously if you're using my other demonstration of how to make the bags, don't worry about the sizes on the other demonstration. These are the sizes that we use, but exactly the same technique as the textile box making demonstration, okay? Which is also the tote bag technique as well. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed that. I hope it's made it a little bit easier for some of you that aren't too sure. It's all a learning curve, isn't it? So anyway, happy sewing. Thank you for watching.